Good afternoon, Tom.
Hey, Aaron, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Not sure where we go with this. First of all, and I know this got talked about a long time ago when it first, I guess, was brought up, Tom, this idea of postponing the election by a week so people could
Right.
collect their pensions. You want to weigh in on this?
Yes. So
Okay.
the NDP has now signaled, even though this is part of a budget bill, and under their agreement with the Liberals, because that's a confidence bill, they said they're going to vote against this part. So the part is delaying the next federal elections fixed date by 1 week. So as things stand right now, the election is scheduled to go off on October 20th, 2025. When was the last federal election? It was on October 21st, 2019, 1 day shy of the 6 years required for federal MPs to collect their pensions for the rest of their lives. So, coming up with a great excuse, Dominic LeBlanc said, it has to do with a particular religious holiday, so we're going to delay it by 1 week. The Conservatives, smelling a rat, said this has everything to do with your pensions. There are, by the way, 80 MPs who, if they lose, and a lot of them would lose, in 2025 would not get their pensions, 80. So that's a whole bunch. Conservatives said this is baloney, this is not true, and I believe that the Conservatives are completely right on this. It was the flimsiest of excuses to try to lock in pensions and quell discontent within the Liberal caucus because people are freaking out because they know that most of them are going to lose in the next election. The NDP was going to go along with the Liberals, but it looked really bad. So they obviously have some focus groups that might include talking to people on the doorstep and saying, hey, you guys are taking care of yourselves, you're taking care of your pensions, we can't afford groceries, life has become unaffordable, and you're giving yourself a break by delaying it. Forget about it. We're not on your side anymore. So the NDP has said they won't vote for that clause, that section of the bill. That leaves open the entire question as to whether or not the NDP will actually vote against the whole thing. Because if it's still in there, because the Liberals keep pushing it through at the different stages, are the NDP then going to vote for the whole budget bill because that's their deal with the Liberals on every confidence and supply meaning everything to do with budget? They've promised that they'll vote with the government. So this is a bit of a funny conundrum they put themselves into. They're getting a little bit of credit for saying, okay, they're not going along with the Liberals on this. Well done. But I'm not sure that everybody's going to be very pleased with the NDP if after trying to get the credit for saying they were against this on principle, they then vote for the entire bill. By the way, there is one single NDP MP elected in 2019 who would get their pension even if it was on the later date of October 21st. You know who that is?
Jagmeet Singh.
Yep, because he was elected in a by-election on February 25th, 2019. So he locks his in on February 25th, 2025. But the other ones, if the date was changed from the 20th and brought back to the 21st, after the 21st, they'd all be in. But if it's not, then they're tough out of luck.
Tom, I'm going to just interrupt for a second. Breaking news, Donald Trump has been found guilty in his hush money case.
Wow.
Jury handing down a historic conviction. We were going to have more on that, obviously, coming up before we get done here. But there you go. The verdict is now in.
That's really incredible, and it's a real testament to the American judicial system. We have so many delays here. They'd still be negotiating over the agendas of the various lawyers if it was in Montreal that this was happening. But the trial's taken place. If there is indeed, as you just said, a guilty verdict, it's also extraordinary with regard to the jury system because all 12 members of that jury, you can be sure, just based on demographics, that there were some members of that jury who had voted for Donald Trump and probably would have again. But the system of justice is such that the law has to apply equally to everyone. And on at least one of those counts, we don't know how many and which ones, Donald Trump has been found guilty.
Donald Trump was convicted, you ready? On all 34 counts of falsifying business records.
Bam. Well, you and I just shared some really historic information. That means that all 12 members were convinced beyond a reasonable doubt on every element of every one of those infractions. That's how we break it down as lawyers, meaning there's no doubt in their minds, no reasonable doubt in their minds on any of that stuff. This is historical. And I would dare say that the judge is also waiting for him on the contempt stuff. He very wisely kept his powder dry, didn't take the bait when Trump was breaking all the rules that he had set down again over the last few days of the trial. Well, you and I have just talked about breaking news.
Yeah, how about that,
huh? The most important breaking news that I've ever had when I was on the air, Aaron.
First American president to be declared a felon. in U.S.
Ouch.
history. So there you go. Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts, as I said, in his trial. This happening just moments ago. All right, we'll have more on that. Let me get back to you, Tom, and talk about what's happening here. You okay now to move on?
You bet.
Okay. We're going to hear from Valerie Plante later in the show. She did an interview with Caroline Van Vlartigan on CTV. We're going to play some of that back. But we know insurance rates, and we did this story early in the afternoon, insurance rates for people who own cars are going to go through the roof. They have been for a while because of course, so many car thefts. Canada now, I believe, is the car theft capital of the world. Yeah. But now we're finding out that the city is actually going to hike up registration rates. And this is interesting because this is all to support a public transit system that apparently the provincial government is not that interested in giving them a whole lot more money to Montreal. And I guess, the municipalities here for. So the city says, how else are we going to come up with the money? We're jacking up these rates. But this is going to affect people, and Jim Meny pointed this out, in the 450. If it was only in Montreal, the CAC wouldn't care because they have no support here. But if it's in, everywhere else, suddenly it's hitting people in the pocketbook. What do you think of this?
Yeah, well, Greater Montreal stretches quite a bit. If I'm not mistaken, you're going up to places like Blainville and Sainte-Thérèse and maybe right up to Mirabel, just before Saint Jerome. So if anybody's looking for property, we live up in the Laurentians. Anything past Saint Jerome, you can avoid this. There are two ways to deal with this. You can either say you're going to learn how to manage and you're going to save money and you're going to do it intelligently and you're going to stop asking for more money because that's the only thing you know how to do. That's why Legault finally put his foot down. That's why Geneviève Guilbeault, in pretty clear terms, said, you've got to be kidding. You guys don't manage anything well. And we saw that again this week with the construction permits. I mean, it's just a gong show over at City Hall with Valerie Plante. The title of it's already online, but it'll be in the paper tomorrow in the Journal de Montréal. The title of my article is Public Administration for Dummies, the City Hall of Valerie Plante. It's a disaster. So there are 1,800 managers in the city of Montreal, count them, and they all got bonuses. So that means that the people who have now doubled and tripled the waiting time for construction permits, she considers them just absolute administrative and managerial geniuses because they all got bonuses. Yeah. And the people who are running the transit system, who are just saying, well, we need more money because we don't know how to do it with the money we've got, they're all business geniuses as well. They all got raises and bonuses as well. So this is the city of Montreal under Valerie Plante. It's the gang that can't shoot straight. They can't get anything right. And all they're going to do is take more money out of your pocket. It would not be nearly as insulting if the people who are now going to pay $100 more for their registration actually had a place to park. But she's taking care of that as well. She really doesn't like cars. So if you're in Park X, you worked hard, you've played by the rules, you and your family have a car so you can get away to the 450 on the weekend. Well, not so much because you can't even have a place to park. You might have to get rid of your car as well. So this is the legacy of Valerie Plante. Good news, there's a municipal election next year and people can change it.
Tom Mulcair back tomorrow morning with, I guess Ken is in for Andrew all this week, but you'll be back then. Tom, thank you. And historic moment we got to share today, huh?
It really is a big one. Yes.